Grouping of notes according to meter. Grouping in duple meter.
All right, grouping in two. When you have two counts in the bar, 1, 2, 1, 2, and you need to draw or write several rhythm within the 1 and 7 rhythm within the 2, you are going to separate the notes that you draw in group 1 from notes you draw in group 2. So 8 notes. These two 8 notes fit in group 1. If I were to draw 8 notes here, you notice that I separated the 8 notes in count 1 from the 8 notes in count 2. You always separate the counts, separate them 1, 2. So you do not draw a line, or you do not extend the beam across to the second count. Rhythm that fits in group 1 will stay by themselves, and a rhythm that are in group 2 stay by themselves. So what if I decide to use 16th notes? These 4 16 notes makes up one count, and I'm gonna put a different group in the second count. Here we go. And this, an 8 note plus 2 16 notes makes up the second count. So you're separating the rhythm that fits in the first count from the rhythm in the second count. It makes it way easier, much easier for a musician to feel where to fit this. Because 2 feels different to 1. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1 and 2 and 1. Once you divide it, the 2 feels different. So this is do, de, do, de, do, da, de, do, data. All right. So musicians don't really rely on counting 1, 2, 1, 2. Or when you get more advanced, a musician will feel 1, 2. A lot of time people say, if I come in late, sometimes I sit on my stand a little late, and they'll be like, how you know which count or which bar? It's because I know how the 1 feels and how the 2 feels, and if we're in the chorus. So eventually you just hit on the right group of notes when you have to play. So in 2, grouping in 2, you separate the beats from 1 from the beats from 2. All right, so let me demonstrate it with another duple time. And it's the first time you must be seeing this. See, this timing, notice I have 1 half note, 2 half notes. This is how we also write cut time. In fact, it's the more modern way, the more popular way. All calypso, soca music, this is the time signature you would see for 2/2. It is the same time signature if you were with 2/2. You notice you still have 1, 2, although I changed it to 2/2. It's the same thing. We refer to it as cut time. So I'm going to put back this. Sorry. I'm going to put back this cut time. 1, 2, just to show you how the grouping will look when I separate counts 1 from counts 2. So let's put an 8 note, and then I'll follow it with a crotchet, was quarter note, followed by another 8 note. I'll put another 8 note. All right. So in count 1, remember the count is a minim for 1 because 2/2 means 2 minims, first minim, second minim. So it means that this first grouping will add up to a minim. Let's make this a note. Make it a note. And if I were to add this up, this is an eighth note. This is an eighth note, so that's a quarter. Added to this quarter in the middle, this adds up to a half. And then my second beat starts here. So you'd notice where my second beat started, it is not joined to the eighth note from within the first beat. There's no marriage there. We're separating the counts. So this is by itself, and this is by itself. So once you're in duple time, you separate the beats that are less than the 1 and the beats that are less than the second beat from themselves. You separate them.
Grouping in triple meter.
All right, so when you are in 3 a meter, well, at least a 3/4, it follows the same rules as you would in 2/4. You separate the counts. 1, 2, 3. So should I choose to subdivide that? 1, 2, 3. So you'd notice there's no beaming across the counts. You separate the counts the same way. You keep them in their group. Later on when I do compound time, I'll show you why the grouping in 3/4 is so important. Anything less so these group of 16 notes, these 4 16 make up count 1. These 2 16 is an 8 plus this 8 makes up count 2. That's a quarter note. And group 3 separate. So you can see a clear separation. Yeah. From group 1, from count 2, I keep saying group, but I mean count 2, and from count 3, you separate the count. Now, there are some times where you may see all, but it's rare. You may see all the quavers, nothing less than quavers. Once you have semi-quavers and less, you separate in the count. But there are some occasions where you may see all the quavers joined up with one beam going right across. But that is really rare. For the sake of music theory 1, separate your counts. We'll understand the nuances of when to join what in a higher level. You cannot go wrong separating your counts. 1, 2, 3. Do they, do they, do they. 1, 2, 3. This is on count 1, this is on count 2, this is on count 3. Do they, do they, do they. Do ta, they do. 1, 2, 3. All right, so the next time signature I'm showing you is another grouping, is another count 3, but this one is different. You do not ever separate. When the bottom number is 8, you do not separate the counts. You join everything up. So 1, 2, 3, we beam all. If I have to make it smaller, so these two are count 1. These 2 16s will make up my 8. It's 3 8 notes. These 16 make a 8, 2, 3. I can choose to make the first 4. So these 2 16s are in count 1. These 2 16s are in count 2. This is in count 3. Or I may just choose to make the, well, if I make the back a quarter note, the quarter note will take up counts 2, 3, because this is 2 8 notes. 1 8 note, 2 8 notes. Yeah. Or I could make this, once it's small, smaller than the crotchet, you join up. So in 3/8, everything joins. All right, so that's the only nuance I'm going to show you at this level. So if you are in 3/4, you separate the counts. It's easier to read in the counts. So even if a musician bumbles over this rhythm, they could play this rhythm. Okay, they'll miss the first count, but they'll bring this do-ta-day. Do-they, bumble, do-ta-day, do. Yeah, so we know to fall back in here. If that's easy to read, or if this whole thing is confusing, you wouldn't stop playing, but this is really easy. Do-they, do. I just play on the third beat. Yeah, because I know where the threes, but if everything was all joined, it would be hard to discern. This is where the second beat starts, or is it here? But it's when it's clearly demarked in its counts, it's easier for a musician to see and read the music.
Grouping in quadruple meter.
So when we have quadruple meter, so here we're seeing, okay, so you're seeing a new time here. It's not new. Just like before, cut time was 2/2. It could be written both ways. This C stands for common time, which is the same as 4/4. So I could actually replace this time signature, this common time, to 4/4. They're both the same thing. Just so that you get used to it, I'm going to just leave it as the C for common time. I assume that it's called common time because a lot of our music is in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Common rhythm in 4. You are permitted, and this is where it's different. You are permitted to join groups 1 and 2 together, and you're permitted to join groups 3 and 4 together. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and only if it has 8 notes alone. So I'm going to demonstrate. This is a quarter note. I said only if it have 8 notes. So I can do this. Should I decide to continue? 3 and 4 will be groups by themselves. Do not cross the halfway line. Don't share. This strong weak doesn't join with the medium weak. This is a group by itself. This is a group by itself. But this is only if it has the 8 notes. If it has smaller value notes, let's say I have a quarter note, an 8 note, but here I decide to put 2 16 notes. Then you separate them. You go to the rules like in group for duple and triple meter. You separate the counts. 1, 2. So this is the only nuance. If you have solely quavers or solely 8 notes, you join groups 1 and 2 together and group 3 and 4. After that, you separate it by counts. You see the last half is only 8 notes, only quavers. So I joined it. Separated. Because when it becomes smaller, it have a lot of notes. It's difficult to read. It's easier. The grouping in the counts 1, 2 helps the reader psychologically for some reason. And the music, it helps with the feel too, because 1, 2, 3, 4, each of these beats feel different. A 4 beat or something in quadruple meter, we feel like doof, click, clack, click, goof, click, clack, click, doof, click, clack, click, doof, click, clack, click. So if I feel in that doof, I know it's on 1. Doof, doof on the 1. Doof, clack, click, doof. I know it's only 1. If it's a light, where we call it weak, so it's strong, weak, medium weak, strong, weak, medium weak. If I get lost and I hear doof, click, I could fall in here because I know the medium feel is t-t, right on the 3. Doof, clack, 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 clack. Yeah, don't mind my sound effects. It's just to emphasize that every beat in a specific meter has its characteristic feel, which is why you could tell the difference between something in 2. 2 will feel like 1, 2, doof, click, doof, click, doof, click, doof, click, like a calypso down. And that's why you could chip so easy. Chipping down the road, dun, 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 right? 4 will feel doof, cliff, doof, click, doof, a different feel to 2. So people, after a while, you'll be able to discern between a 4 and a 2. So that's it in a nutshell. Grouping in 2s, you separate the counts. Grouping in 3s, you separate the counts. If you happen to be in 3/8, you join everything. Everything that is an 8 note and below, you join everything. And when you're in grouping in 4, and you have consecutive quavers, you group quavers 1 and 2 with each other, quavers 3 and 4 with each other. If you have anything less than that quaver or 8 note, then you separate it into their counts.
Let's look at some grouping exercises. Grouping in 2/4 times signature.
So a grouping question may appear like this, where you'd see quavers, 8 notes, 16 notes, and they're all unbeamed. And here they are assessing to see if you know to group, how to group or timing that is in duple meter. So you, according to the duple meter rule that I showed you, you group according to your counts. 1, 2. In some cases, well, let's not get there. For beginner grouping, you're going to group in counts 1, 2. So the first bar I'm going to look at is this bar because it has everything separated. And I need to rewrite this grouped. So the first thing I have is a quaver, and then I have a 16th note, followed by a 16th note. Now, if you look, this is an 8 rest, and this pair makes an 8. These 8, this 8 and this 8 adds up to a quarter. So here will be my very first group. And this will be on count 2. This is a quarter rest. So this quarter rest will take up actually an entire count, count 2, where these 2 8 notes will fit. Since these are on the second count, it is expected that they will be joined. So regrouped or grouped properly, this is how this bar will look. Counts 1 is here, count 2. The next bar, we have quarter notes that take up a count each. So we will just copy it over. All right, so here we have a rest. This rest is an 8 rest, and this is an 8 rest. So these 2 actually will make up a quarter rest, an 8 and an 8. And that'll be count 1. And this is part of count 2. This is actually be on the count 2. And this will be on the and, halfway between the count 2 and the next bar, this note. So if we have to rewrite this, we're going to combine this rest to make it a full quarter rest, because when you add up an 8 and an 8, you get a quarter. So there we go. Then count 2 will begin here on this 8 rest, followed by our note. So this correctly grouped, this will be count 1, this is where count 2 begin. And then, well, this is 2 counts each, so we'll just put it. So the 2 rhythms are the same, but when it's grouped, it's much easier to read it as opposed to when it's all separated like this.
Grouping in 3/4 time signature.
All right, so let's do one in triple meter. The music looks crazy, and that is because everything is ungrouped, and it makes it a little difficult to see where the counts are, especially when they have so many notes that fall less than the value of 1 count. So we have 3, 4, which means every measure is going to hold 3/4 notes. So we're going to look at the first measure, and the first measure has a quaver rest, an 8 rest, and these 2 are 16th, so that adds up to another 8. So this 8 plus this 8 will give me a quarter. So it means that this will form the first count. The first count. Now the first part is a rest, so I'm going to just put in the rest. And then these 2, they have 2 hooks, so there's 16 notes are going to form my second group, the second part of that count. So now it's grouped. So I've gotten rid of the first count. Now I have an 8 here, and it's followed by an 8. So these 2 8s will combine to make my second count of the 3. Second count of the 3, so it means that I will beam those 2 notes. All right, and then the last quarter note will be, well, the 3rd beat of the bar. So these 2 bars are exactly the same, but you see the difference grouping makes. All right, let's go to the second measure. We want to establish where the first count will be. So we have an 8 note, and we have 2 16 notes. The 8 note and the 2 16 notes will combine to give you a quarter. So these 3 notes will make your first count. Now you notice this 8 note has 1 hook, and the last 2 will have 2 hooks. So all of them will have a shared beam. That 1 beam will represent this first hook, the one on the bottom. And then the last 2 will share 2 beams because these have 2 hooks. This one will not have 2 beams. So here we go. So we have an 8 note followed by these 2 double beam notes, but they will be also attached to this one because they're all part of the same count. And this is how you do it. So these 2 having 2 hooks will be joined to each other, but they all have at least 1 hook, so that is shared. And the shared hook, when it's one has a single and one has a double, is the one at the bottom. All right, so that makes up our first count. So that stopped here. And now we have, well, I would say it's the reverse. We have 2 16 notes in front and followed by an 8 note, and this will give us our second count. So it's 2 16 notes followed by the 8 note to give us the second count. And notice this only has 1 hook, so you have 1 beam that's shared among them, but they're all in the second count. Then we have the 8 rest. The 8 rest followed by an 8 note, and that will make up the third count. This entire bar has no sound in it. So why subdivide all the rest? You know, for an entire bar of 1, 2, 3, nothing is being played. And the rule is once the entire bar is not being played, you will use this rest. Now we learned that this is the whole rest and you'd usually count it 1, 2, 3, 4. But it doesn't matter where rest is concerned. We know the entire bar is 3, so we just use the whole rest, whether it's 2, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 8, 4, 10, 4. This, once it's an entire empty bar, this is the rest that is utilized. So we're going to leave this. So this empty bar grouped is the whole rest. This is the one that hangs off the line. And the final bar looks really, really confusing, but it will look much better if we group them in their counts. So here we have an 8 note, and on either side of the 8 note, we have 16ths. So these 3 actually makes up 1 count. Now, what happens if you have 2 hooks on the side, but the one in the middle is 1 hook, and 2 hooks on the same side? What you do is you give all of them the single beam. They all have at least 1 beam, but the 2 on the extreme ends, they will just have their second beam, and it will only be half the distance. Let me demonstrate. So we'll have the first one, and then we want to join it up to the 8. So because this one only has 1 beam, it doesn't go all the way, it just stops halfway. The beams never extend on the outside. It always is on the inside of the notes it's joined to. So it will face this way. And it would be best to demonstrate with the next one to show you what I mean. The next one's supposed to have 2 hooks, but this still has 1. So it's not supposed, the second one is not supposed to touch it. So there we go. So you notice this half a beam did not extend to the right side. It was on the inside. So you have to let it face the inside of the group. Don't let it extend out. All right, and that was our first count. So it stopped here on the 3rd note. The next one, 2 16 notes and an 8 note makes up the next count. In fact, that is exactly like this. 2 16 notes followed by an 8 note. So you know what? Laziness. I'm going to just copy and paste it because it's the same rhythm. There we go. These 2 have 2 hooks, so they share, and then this one will be by himself. So we stopped right here, and then here we have the reverse. We have a 8 note followed by 2 16th, and that will add up to the sum total. An 8 note followed by 2 16th. That'll give us the sum total of a count. Oops, I forgot to leave this bar. That was empty. Okay, no problem. So that is where this is going. I'll just delete it. So here we have the music on top looking exactly like the music below. It's not looking like, but it's the same music. This is when it's all grouped. Much easier for the musician who's playing it to determine this. This is group 1, this is group 2, this is group 3. Da 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 da. Here you could get lost. Which one I'm on? This one, this one. The grouping 1, 2, 3. Da 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 da. Yeah, it's much easier to read. Hence grouping.
Grouping in 4/4 signature.
Now I am going to show you if we have a quadruple meter, 4/4, 4 quarter notes per bar. And the more counts you have in the bar, the more daunting music of unbeamed notes or ungrouped notes look, as you can see. We're going to make it look much easier to read by grouping it. So we have an 8 note here, and to get 1 count, we'd need to add this 16th note and this 16th note. So the 8 plus these 2 notes that make another 8 is going to give us a quarter. So this is where the first count lies. So we have an 8 followed by 2/16, this is where the first count lies. So the second count is going to begin here. And this is an 8 and an 8. An 8 and an 8 is going to fulfill the second count. So we will join those two. This is an entire count. So that is going to be on the third beat. And then we're going to join this last group here together. This is an 8 plus 2/16, which will give us a quarter. And we are checking quarters here. The bottom number is 4. So this will be actually the fourth quarter of the song joined to 2 16th notes. Right. So once you have a pair here, you join the beams together. You don't have any sticking halfway across. Join these two. The only time you have it sticking halfway across is if there is one 16th note tethered to an 8th note. All right, so here we are, first bar complete, and this looks much easier to read than this version. We've grouped it in the counts of 1, count 2, this will be on count 3, and these will be on count 4. On data, do, they, do, data. Yeah? All right, so let's go to the next measure. And here we have 2 8 notes, so that'll be on the first count. So let's put that in, 2 8 notes. And then we have 2 8 notes following it directly. Now you remember for the quadruple meter, if you have consecutive 8 notes, only consecutive 8 notes, then you could join the first 2 counts. And if it's on the last half of the bar, you could join counts 3 and 4. So because of that rule, these 4 are going to be beamed. 1, 2. It doesn't affect how reading it is. Yeah. So now this is on count 3, and count 3 will begin 1, 2, 3, 4. Count 3 will begin here. So we have another 8 note coming, and it's followed by these 2/16. So this 8 and these 2/16 will be grouped together. Sorry. Will be grouped together. So this was our second count ending here. And then we have the 16th. And it's not paired with another 16th. It's actually paired with an 8, which only has 1 hook. So we're going to just join. We'll draw the 2 beams, but the bottom one will join it. And the top one will just be halfway through, facing towards the note. You want to keep it on the inside. Right, so halfway. Because this one you have 1 hook. So you don't want people to mess up the rhythm if you draw it too far. Just halfway across. And then the last one is a 16th note halfway across. And you have your beams. Your beams must be facing on the inside, not extending out of the group. Like so. All right, what is going on here? This entire bar is a rest. So there's no need to subdivide the rest. You just don't play for the count of 4. And thus you just use, this is a universal rest that you use for any time signature to show that nothing is being played. So we'll move on to our 4th bar. This is an 8 rest. And if we join it with these 2/16, this will make up the first count in the 4/4. So we have an 8 rest followed by 2/16 notes. And that's the first group. The second group, this is an 8 note. This is a quarter note because it's an 8 plus an 8. And then the next is a quarter, is an 8 plus an 8. But because this is on count 1 and this is on count 2, they cannot, count 2 cannot be grouped to count 3. The rule is you could only join the quavers if it is 1 and 2 or 3 and 4. You cannot join it on count 2 and 3. So that's why it will be separated here. This is the borderline. Here it was joined, all these 4 eighth notes were joined because this was count 1 and this was count 2. But here you cannot join over count 2 and count 3. Yeah, halfway through, no joining of the quavers. So here we have count 1 covered, count 2, these two made a count 3, and count 3 and 4 can be joined. This could be joined, but this one will have to remain apart because it belongs to count 1. All right, no sharing, don't come across that borderline. And this is the ungrouped version. This is the group version. They are exactly the same rhythm.